Good morning, Acadiana. Welcome to Local News Live, a production of AOC Community Media in partnership with The Advocate, our local journalists. The music, as has been brought to you every day lately, is from CC Mixter, Dig CC Mixter, where you can find all sorts of attribution licensed, Creative Commons licensed music for your projects. And we thank you, the audience, for joining us, and we especially thank Danon for joining us to read the news this morning. Good morning, Danon.
Well, good morning, Matt. Thank you. That was very nice.
Thank you. And I look forward to listening to the news. I'm going to let you take it away, and I'll listen online. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Acadiana. My name is Danon, and it is May 2020. There you are. Here is the news for today. Councils debate disbursement. This is a story by Claire Taylor. The Lafayette City and Parish Councils Tuesday considered a proposal by Mayor President Josh Guillory to distribute $850,000 in federal housing funds to small businesses forced to close because of the coronavirus that aren't eligible for federal assistance. They were still discussing the proposal as of press time on Tuesday evening. The funds are from community development block grants distributed by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. The estimated 2,800 businesses that may qualify under Guillory's proposal are those that employ 10 or fewer people and include hairstylists, photographers, musicians, artists, bakers, caterers, dog trainers, and wedding planners, he said. In Lafayette Parish, about 32,000 people filed new applications for employment since the coronavirus crisis began, according to Greg Gautreaux, president and CEO of the Lafayette Economic Development Authority. That's more unemployed people than during the oil industry bust of 2014 to 2017, he said. Gautreaux said he has never seen the economy in this situation. Not during the oil bust of the 80s, he said. This is worse than that. The $850,000 would go only to businesses in the city and unincorporated parts of the parish. Businesses must be in low to moderate income areas, according to the proposal. The authority's foundation has put up another $200,000 for businesses that are in other municipalities or received insufficient federal aid. City Councilwoman Liz Hebert proposed an amendment to direct up to 20% of the federal money to utility assistance, and as an alternative, brought to the city parish administration the possibility of using existing federal housing money for utility and rental assistance. As a result, Parish Community Development Director Hollis Conway said his office identified $200,000 in federal funds the city receives outside the coronavirus emergency that may be used for utilities and rental assistance. The funds are for services such as Habitat for Humanity and first-time homebuyers. Hebert said, "Those are worthy causes," she said, "but the immediate need is to prevent people from becoming homeless. More than 300 people have become homeless in Lafayette in the past 2 to 3 months, according to Kim Boudreau of Catholic Charities, which administers utility assistance from the city's Share the Light program. For more information on applying, contact the authority by dialing 311 extension 2. Some nursing homes had other red flags. This is a story by Youssef Redad and Feynman A. Roberts III. For nearly a decade, Catherine Robbins has sounded the alarm about the lack of hand washing among employees at the Baton Rouge nursing home where her husband lives. Through a live video feed of his room, she's watched over the years as one health worker after another at Carrington Place walks past the hand sanitizer on the door, then to the one on the sink in the corner, before caring for him, she said. So when Doug Robbins, who is 49, was recently hospitalized with the coronavirus, she wasn't surprised. And because he has been unable to move following the brain injury that landed him in the home, she has little doubt about how he was infected. He has since recovered from the viruses and is back at the nursing home. But Robbins and her family say the complaints they've filed to the state about the home's infection control practices have fallen on deaf ears, and they wonder if anything will change. They will get away with it without the state punishing them, said Douglas Robbins II, the Robbins' son. That is a government that is failing us. A spokeswoman with the Louisiana Department of Health didn't respond Tuesday to a query about the Robbins family's complaint. Carrington Place didn't return messages seeking comment. As of Monday, 11 residents at the facility have died from the virus, and more than 40 have tested positive for it, according to state records released this week. There have been higher death tolls at 26 of Louisiana's 279 licensed nursing homes. But the Robbins' story and years of federal inspections raise questions about whether there is any correlation between the quality of care a facility offers and the likelihood that an infectious disease like the coronavirus could find a foothold there. According to federal inspection records, Carrington Place twice has been cited for infection control infractions in the past 3 years. The latest citation involved employees not properly cleaning feeding tubes and catheters. Those two infractions were among 21 deficiencies the inspectors found in recent visits, including some deemed serious enough that they placed residents in immediate jeopardy. Overall, the Federal Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services gives Carrington Place a score of 1 star on a 5-star scale, which equates to much below average. Carrington Place is far from alone among Louisiana nursing homes in its double-digit death toll from the virus, in its recent history of infection control failures, or in the generally low marks it has received from federal regulators. According to the state data released Monday, 41 nursing homes have had 10 or more residents die from COVID-19. Those homes alone account for 1 in every 4 reported deaths from the virus in Louisiana. At least 27 of the 41 homes with the highest death tolls have been cited for infection control deficiencies within about the past 3 years, according to data published and maintained by ProPublica, the investigative news nonprofit, and the Federal Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Over the same period, the feds issued a little over $200,000 in total fines against the homes. Catherine Robbins suspects her husband likely caught the virus from one of the 13 staff members at the nursing home who has reported contracting the virus. She recalled her husband's nurse being out sick, as well as others who had come into contact with him without gloves or mask. After she filed a complaint to the Louisiana Department of Health, officials responded in a May 6 letter reviewed by the Advocate and the Times-Picayune, saying there was insufficient evidence to take any action, despite Robbins noting she had footage of the incidents that weren't viewed by state officials. Although no deficient practices were identified, the facility has taken the opportunity to reevaluate their policies and procedures, the letter said. Robbins said there would be steeper penalties for facilities that chronically fall short of hygiene standards, as well as an easier path for residents and their families to file complaints. They know I have cameras, they know I'm emailing them, and they're still doing nothing, Robbins said. They don't even care. Infection control problems don't explain every coronavirus outbreak in the state, however. Nursing home industry advocates and others have suggested that the biggest predictor of an outbreak is if the home is in a densely populated area where many COVID-19 cases have been documented. Indeed, only a handful of nursing homes in southeastern Louisiana, the epicenter of the state's outbreak, have been able to avoid a single known infection so far. Most of the 80-plus nursing homes that have escaped unscathed so far are in areas lightly touched by the virus. Star ratings on the CMS website and a record of past violations have not proven a reliable indicator of potential outbreaks, according to an article published earlier this month in Provider Magazine, the publication of the American Health Care Association and the National Center for Assisted Living, the largest national industry groups. Eric Wallen, the administrator of Bayside Healthcare in Gretna, attributed his facility's approximately 24 infections and 17 deaths to its location in hard-hit Jefferson Parish. If you are in a community that has 7,000 positive cases, you're more at risk, Wallen said. According to data released Tuesday, Jefferson Parish has 7,095 cases of coronavirus, the most in the state. Its death toll is 429, second to nearby Orleans, 494. 7 of the 41 homes that have had more than 10 deaths are in Jefferson Parish, according to the state's numbers. There are 4 apiece in Orleans, East Baton Rouge, and Cato parishes, each of which have been hit hard by the pandemic, the data shows. But the theory that nursing home outbreaks simply mirror what's going on in adjacent communities doesn't explain the deadliest outbreak in Louisiana nursing home to date at J. Michael Morrow Memorial Nursing Home in Arnaudville in rural St. Landry Parish. At Morrow, 34 residents had died from the disease as of Sunday, according to the state. St. Landry Parish Coroner Russell Pavich said Tuesday that 2 more had died since then. In all, 44 of the 51 deaths in St. Landry Parish have occurred in 4 nursing homes in the parish, Pavich said. Neighboring Lafayette Parish, which has 3 times the population, has had only 24 deaths overall and just 4 in nursing homes. Pavich couldn't offer a good explanation for the disparity, but he noted that Morrow draws residents from a number of surrounding parishes. It's kind of a difficult question to answer why that particular nursing home suffered, he said. You are looking at the exposure rates for rotating employees and visitors from the surrounding parishes. Morrow, like Carrington Place, has an overall rating of 1 star, according to the CMS. It also was cited for an infection-related deficiency. Both homes received a 1-star rating in the subcategory of staffing, which was true of nearly half of the Louisiana nursing homes that have had coronavirus deaths. The Robbins family is now mulling their options, including the possibility of appealing the health department's decision. They say they still plan to continue pressing for changes, especially if it leads to fewer cases and deaths at Carrington Place. I would like to see my dad and the other residents taken care of with respect, said daughter Soledad Robbins, who is 16 years old. It's incredibly frustrating and disheartening to see the reckless disregard for my dad and the other residents' well-being. Superintendent race is too close to call on the eve of vote. This is a story by Will Sentel. Louisiana's top school board will try to name a new state superintendent of education Wednesday, but questions persisted on the eve of the vote over who has enough support to land the job. Cade Brumley, superintendent of public schools in Jefferson Parish, is believed to be backed by Governor John Bel Edwards' 3 appointees to the 11-member state board of elementary and secondary education, as well as superintendents, school board members, and teachers' unions. Jessica Bajian, assistant state superintendent of education and one-time lieutenant to former state superintendent of education John White, is backed by advocates of public school changes who have dominated education debates for the past 20 years. Former St. James Parish Schools Superintendent Lonnie Luce is touted by backers as a compromise choice, with a record that includes time in both traditional and charter schools. But insiders said Tuesday unofficial head counts show none of the contenders with the minimum 8 votes needed, which could change after a round of public votes begins shortly after 9 a.m. Bessie President Sandy Holloway, who said she remains undecided, emphasized that the voting will be done in public until and unless someone reaches the magic number after a 4-month job search. The other 2 finalists are Heather Poole, a 46-year-old executive vice chancellor of Central Louisiana Community College in Alexandria, and 66-year-old Paul Vallis, a former superintendent of the State Recovery School District. Joe Sedlecki, who is 44, is a top official of the Texas Education Agency, but he withdrew his name from considerations, officials said Tuesday. At stake is one of the most influential jobs in state government and one that paid White $275,000 per year. The superintendent plays a huge role in shaping policies that govern about 720,000 public school students and is often the deciding factor in the tug of war between teachers' unions and other traditional public school groups versus self-styled reformers. Bajian and Brumley have long been thought to be the leading contenders for the job. All 8 elected Bessie members were backed by business groups, which generally have supported sweeping public school changes for years and make up a voting bloc that would seem to favor Bajian. But unofficial head counts have put Bajian short of the needed 8 votes Tuesday, with conflicting views on why. 3 elected panel members are new to the board: Preston Castile and Ronnie Morris, both of Baton Rouge, and Ashley Ellis of Monroe. Others often aligned with school overhaul efforts, including Tony Davis of Natchitoches and Kira Orange Jones of New Orleans, have declined to say whom they back. Jim Garvey, a Metairie attorney and the longest-serving member of Bessie, and Holly Boffey of Lafayette are believed to back Bajian. Edwards' 3 appointees, Belinda Davis of Baton Rouge, Doris Vautier of Metairie, and Tommy Roque of Alexandria, are thought to favor Brumley. The governor, who is firmly aligned with teachers' unions and other traditional public school groups, clashed repeatedly with White over how to repair schools. He is believed to favor Brumley as someone who will slow or even reverse the direction taken by the self-styled reformers. School overhaul advocates generally back vouchers, which are state aid for low-income students to attend private schools, and charter schools, which are public schools that are supposed to offer innovative classrooms and tougher teacher oversight, including through annual evaluations. Many leaders of traditional public schools contend that vouchers drain vital dollars from public schools, that charter schools have failed to deliver on promises of new age schools, and that Louisiana's teacher job reviews are riddled with flaws. One theory making the rounds Tuesday is that Holloway met with the governor, who quietly backs Brumley and can either help him get the job or block Bajian from landing the post. Holloway said Tuesday, although she met with the governor weeks ago, like other Bessie presidents have done, Edwards neither sought nor received her support for Brumley. "Let me say it nicely," she said. "He did not mention Cade's name. No individual names were mentioned. He has never asked me to vote for Cade." The governor's office did not respond to a request for comment on Tuesday. One school of thought is that if neither Bajian nor Brumley can get the needed 8 votes, Bessie should name LUS, who is superintendent of a group that oversees 7 charter schools in 5 parishes, in addition to his expertise as a traditional superintendent. Backers of LUS, who is 51, say that his selection makes sense, especially at a time when public schools are in limbo and the shutdown 9 weeks before the end of classes because of the coronavirus pandemic. But Bajian's camp is seen as lukewarm to settling for LUS, who has the support of some school overhaul advocates as a logical choice to break any deadlock. They say one theory is that once the balloting begins, 1 or 2 Bessie members could decide the issue by switching sides in the interest of resolving the impasse. They say that would be preferable to Bessie having to extend the search, especially after White could not land a contract extension for the past 4 years of his tenure because he lacked the needed 8 votes amid an early impasse on the board. Okay, AOC teams up with the United Way of Acadiana for Learn United. The United Way of Acadiana has teamed up with AOC and other local educational groups for Learn United, bridging the digital gap to provide educational resources for households that don't have internet but do have a television. The Learn United programs air weekdays from 8 to 2 on AOC 2, Cox 16, LUS 4, and streaming at aocinc.org/watch. For the daily schedules and to submit content for the program, visit the United Way of Acadiana website, unitedwayofacadiana.org/learn-united. Vitalant seeking plasma donations from recovered COVID patients. In early April, Vitalant, the nation's largest independent nonprofit blood service provider, launched a program in collaboration with hospital partners, the Mayo Clinic and the American Red Cross, to treat COVID-19 patients with convalescent plasma. The Food and Drug Administration has identified and approved convalescent plasma treatment as an emergency investigational new drug. It is currently the only antibody treatment available to COVID-19 patients, and as such is a promising new treatment option. Currently, there are no vaccines or proven treatments for COVID-19 because the virus is so new. Although trials for a vaccine are underway, it is expected to be many months before one is approved. So Vitalant is seeking these plasma donates to help patient. Your eligibility criteria are prior diagnosis of COVID-19, documented by a laboratory test or a positive serological test for the SARS-CoV-2 antibodies taken after recovery. Number 2, complete resolution of symptoms for at least 14 days. And number 3, you need to meet all current FDA donor eligibility requirements to donate plasma. If you would like to be a part of this, please contact. You are encouraged to apply through the Vitalant website, and that is vitalant.org/COVID-free. So that's VITALANT.org/COVID-free. You can also call 866-287-5762. Our next story, outbreaks put spotlight on plight of laborers. This is about migrant workers that power crawfish industry. So this is a story by Sam Carlin. Coronavirus outbreaks at 3 crawfish facilities in the Acadiana region, infecting 100 people and prompting investigations by state health officials, has highlighted the precarious nature of crawfish processing in a pandemic, with migrant workers living and working in close quarters on farms across rural Louisiana. Those close to the industry say the outbreaks come as no surprise, given the working and living conditions at the facilities. The proliferation of cases is akin to Louisiana's version of coronavirus outbreaks at meat packing plants across the country, which have roiled that industry. It's like a house with a family in it, said David Savoy, who runs a crawfish farm and processing facility near Church Point, which he said has been spared from the virus so far. If one person gets it, there's a good chance everyone's going to get sick. That's just the reality of the situation. The Louisiana Department of Health, which is leading the investigations into the outbreaks, declined to name the 3 crawfish farms and processing facilities where the outbreaks were confirmed. Spokeswoman Allie Neal said they are private businesses that are not open to the public, and on Tuesday said the owners are seeking our guidance and have been compliant with our recommendations. Before the crustacean arrives at beer-soaked crawfish boils or restaurants, crawfish is harvested and processed by a labor force made up largely of guest workers from Mexico and other countries. And when the migrant workers come to the state seasonally to work at crawfish farms and processing plants, they live in trailers or dormitory-like facilities that are often provided by employers in exchange for a cut of workers' paychecks, depending on the type of visa. Once crawfish is hauled in from rice paddies or ponds, workers take them to processing facilities where much of the crawfish is steamed or boiled. Lines of workers at long tables peel the crawfish and package them for sale at grocery stores or restaurants. Dr. Suzanne Strafe-Bourgeois, an associate professor of epidemiology at LSU Health Sciences Center, New Orleans, and a former epidemiologist for the state health department, noted that slaughterhouses and meatpacking plants across the U.S. have seen severe outbreaks largely because workers are laboring in such close quarters. With crawfish facilities, she said, the problem is they're living together. The outbreaks pose little risk to the public, Strafe-Bourgeois said, especially if the facilities are following guidance from the state. When officials discover such an explosion of cases, she said the state health department typically tries to act quickly to test people and isolate them. The state health department previously did not recommend testing people who weren't showing symptoms, but it changed its policy recently after the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention issued new guidance for congregate settings, like nursing homes and prisons. Dr. Alex Bilyeu, Assistant Secretary of the state's Office of Public Health, said Monday the agency found one outbreak at a crawfish facility among workers who live in dormitory-like settings. That led to broader testing of people without symptoms who were being housed separately for those who tested positive. I'm not surprised, just because it's the nature of the industry, especially with crawfish peeling plants, said State Representative John Stefanski, a Republican from Crowley. It's people working in very close quarters as well as living in the same area. Producers say that they take safety precautions amid the pandemic. Savoy of Church Point said the processing plant is sanitized frequently and workers' temperatures taken. He said given the rural location of his business, social distancing from people not living at the property is easy. He also said it would be impossible to build new housing quickly enough to space out the workers. But Sabina Hins Foley Tejo, a lead organizer for the Seafood Workers Alliance, said labor issues in the crawfish industry were already rampant before the virus hit, and they've only grown worse. She said workers are going without hazard pay and have limited access to clean masks. It's elbow to elbow, she said. No shields, in some places, no masks. The New Orleans Workers Center for Justice, an adversary group affiliated with Tejo's organization, said workers must risk their pay and housing to speak up, the perfect recipe for unsafe working conditions going unreported. The organization called for an end to deportation of seafood workers and expansion and enforcement of labor protections for the most vulnerable workers. According to federal data compiled by Maria Bompasidou, an assistant professor of agriculture, economics, and agribusiness at LSU, 31 seafood processing facilities in fiscal year 2019 filed for workers using H-2B visas and were approved for almost all of the 1,467 positions they applied for. H-2B visa workers are employed by crawfish and other seafood processing facilities, where H-2A workers are on the agricultural side. Bampisado said in 2017 and 2018, she talked to crawfish processors about their reliance on the H-2B program and found they depended almost entirely on the visas. She estimates as much as 70% of the industry is staffed by H-2B visa workers. While Louisiana has seen an explosion of coronavirus cases at nursing homes and other long-term adult residential settings, the crawfish facilities represent the first time the state has announced outbreaks at work sites. The Louisiana Department of Health initially named nursing homes with clusters of the virus, then shielded the information for weeks. This week, it resumed naming them, though declined to name the businesses with the outbreaks. The revelation comes as the state marches forward with its phased reopening plan, with restaurants and other businesses allowed to operate at 25% capacity. The state health department said Monday the upticks in cases in the Acadiana region were due to the crawfish facility outbreaks and said officials were monitoring them. Dr. Tina Stefanski, the Louisiana Department of Health Region 4 director, said the facilities were in Lafayette and Acadia parishes. Strafe Bourgeois of LSU Health Sciences Center New Orleans added that even with the outbreaks, there's no risk to people eating crawfish. I would urge everyone to eat crawfish and boil them, she said. Sorry, I had to take a little water there. Okay. Bill to Kill Coastal Parish Suits Advances by Tyler Ridges. Lawsuits filed by 7 coastal parishes against oil and gas companies remained on the chopping block Tuesday after a state Senate committee dismissed an in-house analysis that a bill to kill those lawsuits might cost the state big dollars. The Senate Finance Committee approved Senate Bill 359 on a 7-1 vote, but not before chastising the legislative staffer who produced the analysis and not allowing comments from a private attorney opposed to the bill who would have backed her findings. SB 359 now advances to the full Senate. If it wins approval there, the measure would move to a House committee for consideration. Winning passage of the bill is a major priority for oil and gas companies, which spent heavily last year to elect a more favorable legislature and whose representatives say the lawsuits have chilled investment in Louisiana. Governor John Bel Edwards, who received major contributions from trial attorneys, has supported the lawsuits. He says he opposes SB 359 because it would retroactively nullify existing lawsuits. The parishes that have filed lawsuits are Plaquemines, St. John the Baptist, St. Bernard, Vermilion, Jefferson, Cameron, and Orleans. At issue Tuesday was an analysis by the Legislative Fiscal Office, a nonpartisan branch of the legislature, that SB 359 could result in a significant increase in expenditures because the Attorney General and the State Department of Natural Resources would take over the lawsuits of the legislature and annuls those filed by the parishes. State Senator Bob Hensgen, a Republican from Guidon, the bill's sponsor, had been prepared to have the full Senate act on his bill Monday, but the cost estimate in a revised fiscal note forced SB 359 to detour through the Finance Committee on Tuesday. Hensgen complained to the committee that the fiscal office had not projected a cost from either the Attorney General's office or the Department of Natural Resources when the Senate Natural Resources Committee, which he chairs, approved it on May 11th. He also said the fiscal office had relied on a newspaper story for its analysis. I've never seen anything like it, Hensgens told the committee. Rebecca Robinson, the legislative staffer, acknowledged that she had read a newspaper story that quoted attorney John Carmouche, who has filed lawsuits for 6 of the parishes, as saying he had spent $9 million so far. In the story, Carmouche was questioning whether the state could afford to take over the lawsuits. The lawsuits aren't costing state taxpayers anything now because Carmouche's firm is footing the bill. Robinson said she had less than 24 hours to prepare the initial fiscal analysis before Hensgen's committee heard the bill. But afterward, with additional time, she verified the newspaper account with Carmouche's public testimony before the Natural Resources Committee and further checked it with the Department of Natural Resources, she said. The agency is a party to the lawsuit and estimates that each of the 43 lawsuits filed by the parishes would cost at least $4.3 million to pay for depositions of expert witnesses and for attorneys at $150 to $500 per hour. We said if the state continued with lawsuits, the cost would likely be significant, Robinson said, and noted later that pursuing a lawsuit against BP following the 2010 oil spill cost the state $40 million. She added, however, that if Attorney General Jeff Landry and the Department of Natural Resources, which is under Edwards' authority, would choose not to pursue the cases against the oil and gas companies, the cost would be zero. Deputy Attorney General Bill Stiles said the Attorney General's office said they anticipate no additional cost if the bill passes because it does not change the authority of his office. His comments did not address how much his office would have to spend if it would choose to pursue the lawsuit. State Senator Greg Tarver, a Democrat from Shreveport, asked if the state could avoid a big tab by hiring outside attorneys on contingency fees. Donald Price, the Department of Natural Resources special counsel, said state law prohibits that. The Carmouche law firm is not working on a contingency basis, not exactly anyhow. A judge would determine its fee in a settlement or after a successful trial. The Carmouche firm has won a tentative settlement with one oil and gas company, Freeport-McMoran, for $100 million, but a bill to create a framework to divide the payments died before Hensgen's committee last week. On Tuesday, State Senator Mike Fessy, a Republican from Homa, called Robinson's accounts fictitious. State Senator Cameron Henry, a Republican from Metairie, asked Robinson if she had seen receipts from Carmouche verifying his $9 million cost claim for 2 of the 42 lawsuits his firm has filed. Robinson replied that she hadn't, but noted that the Department of Natural Resources had supported Carmouche's figure. Henry asked if she had verified the receipts with the agency, when she said she assumed the information was accurate. Henry said it was dangerous public policy to assume information from an opponent of a bill. Carmouche was sitting in the committee hearing room, but the committee's chairman, Bodie White, a Republican from Central, did not allow him or anyone else to testify on the bill after citing time constraint concerns. Carmouche was angry afterward, saying he could have shown how he had spent the $9 million and how the state would have to spend tens of millions of dollars to continue the lawsuits. How can you make an educated decision if you don't want to hear all the facts, Carmouche said in an interview. It would have taken me 10 minutes to go through all of this in detail. They didn't want to hear the truth. Voting to advance SB 359 to the full Senate, Senators Fessy, Henry, Tarver, Mark Abraham, a Republican from Lake Charles, Heather Cloud, a Republican from Turkey Creek, Ronnie Johns, Republican from Lake Charles, and Glenn Womack, a Republican from Harrisonburg. Voting against advancing the bill was Senator Regina Barrow, a Democrat from Baton Rouge. Okay, let's see. Medicaid resources. If you have lost your job or if you have reduced hours, you may be eligible for Medicaid. You can apply online at mymedicaid.la.gov. That's MY Medicaid, MEDICAID.la.gov. You can also apply by phone by calling 888-342-6207. or by mail by sending information to Louisiana Medicaid, Post Office Box 91283, Baton Rouge, Louisiana 70821. Local Medicaid offices are currently closed to the public, so if additional assistance is needed, you need again to call the number 888-342-6207. One Shot in Downtown Lafayette by Katie Gagliano. A man was shot near Garfield and Johnston Streets in Lafayette on Tuesday morning and was taken to a hospital with at least one gunshot wound to the lower torso, Lafayette Police spokesman Sergeant Wayne Griffin said. The shooter fled the scene in a vehicle. Few other details were available from law enforcement on Tuesday. Hunter Spear and his boss were working a plumbing job about 11:40 a.m. at the Green Room on Jefferson Street when they heard 5 gunshots. For a split second, Spear said he thought it might be a nail gun, but after working downtown for several weeks, he said he's never seen roofing jobs or similar work underway. It was a gun firing, he said. It was as clear as day that it was gunshots. The sound was tight together. Pop, 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 pop. You can't mistake that, Spear said. The sound of a vehicle crash and then squealing tires followed, like a vehicle was fleeing the area, he said. Unsure exactly where the shooting happened, Spear said he was concerned for his safety. There was definitely a little bit of fear, he said. Spear and his boss walked several blocks toward the chaos and the sound of police sirens to investigate what happened. On scene, he saw a friend filing a report with officers. The friend later told Spear he was sitting in his vehicle at the intersection stoplight when he heard gunshots. Moments later, the shooting victim rear-ended him in a black Honda. The friend told Spear he pulled his vehicle onto Johnson Street and into a grassy area beside the CrossFit Acadiana building to escape danger. Spear said his friend didn't see much in the commotion. The plumber said he saw bullet holes in the driver's side door of the Honda while officers secured the scene. The black Honda was parked askew at Garfield and Johnston Streets with the driver's door ajar. A tow truck collected the vehicle about 12:45 p.m. Tuesday. The vehicle's left side sustained damage in the crash, and a gold-colored tennis shoe, what looked like bloody clothing, and other items lay on the ground near the vehicle. A couple hundred feet away in the 500 block of Garfield Street, at least 7 evidence markers were stationed in the street. Griffin confirmed the victim was in the black Honda and an accident occurred after the shooting. Winds and fatal tornado may have reached 150 miles per hour. The story is by Ben Stickney. Preliminary assessments of storm damage in Acadia Parish suggest a short but furious EF3 tornado. Winds were estimated at 150 miles per hour. That left one woman dead and a handful of people injured northwest of Church Point. Acadia Parish Sheriff K.P. Gibson on Tuesday identified the victim from Sunday night's tornado as Latreca Dominic, a 27-year-old. Rob Medjnia, a meteorologist at the National Weather Service in Los Angeles, said the tornado on the ground for 7 minutes had a total length of about 4 miles and maximum width of 100 yards from 5 miles northwest of Church Point to about a mile short of it. It was very impressive considering the environment, Menya said Tuesday morning. We were not expecting any tornadoes. A 2-person survey crew for the Weather Service showed preliminary evidence of tornadoes only in Acadia and Allen parishes, where damage was lighter, although the preliminary report suggests the tornado that struck near Church Point was also in St. Landry Parish, at least briefly. Menya said that the storm environment in Acadia Parish on Sunday suggested severe thunderstorms, but not on a large scale. But the storm came chugging through the vicinity of Prudence Highway near St. Margaret Road at about 8:34 p.m., tearing one home off its pilings and carrying it 50 yards, destroying 4 mobile homes, and in Church Point, knocking a tree atop a house. Of the destroyed mobile homes, Menya said 2 were flipped in the air and separated from their frames. 1 rolled over, another was pulled from its blocks. Other damage included destruction of 2 grain dryers, and an 18-wheeler used to transport crops was picked up and flipped onto a road. The tornado struck a lightly settled portion of the parish. Had it struck Church Point, Menya said damage might have been more substantial. The path of the storm was described at beginning near Gobert Road and Peterville Highway, across Grand Maras Road, Prudence Highway, St. Margaret Road, Lawtell Highway, and North Bow Street. The Federal Emergency Management Agency describes an EF3 tornado as carrying winds of 136 to 165 miles per hour. Damage includes collapse of most walls except interior rooms and most trees in the forest uprooted. The preliminary report on the Allen Parish tornado said a small tornado touched down near U.S. Highway 165, a little south of the airport. It moved along parts of Ward Road. Several streets were snapped or uprooted along the path. Eat Lafayette to waive restaurant registration fees by Megan Wyatt. Eat Lafayette, the local dining campaign meant to boost restaurants during the slow summer months, is needed now more than ever before, organizers say. Restaurants have taken a hard hit since mid-March because the coronavirus restrictions. To help out, Lafayette Travel is waiving registration fees for restaurants that want to participate in the Eat Lafayette program this year. This campaign has always been about independently owned local restaurants. Cafe Vermilionville's Ken Veron, chairman of Eat Lafayette's advisory board, said in a prepared statement, "These restaurants are our cultural identifiers with cuisine and a vibe that is only found in Lafayette." Eat Lafayette's summer dining campaign enters its 16th year at a time when restaurants across the country are shuttering after weeks of reduced business due to COVID-19 restrictions. The campaign is set to kick off June 22nd and continue through September 13th. Any locally owned restaurant that has not been part of Eat Lafayette can register for free at eatlafayette.com/registration. Locally owned restaurants are defined as those that started in Lafayette Parish. Okay, today in history. Today is Wednesday, May 20th, the 141st day of 2020. There are 225 days left in the year. Today's highlight in history. On May 20th, 1961, a white mob attacked a busload of freedom riders in Montgomery, Alabama, prompting the federal government to send in U.S. Marshals to restore order. On this day in 1506, explorer Christopher Columbus died in Spain. In 1873, Levi Strauss and Taylor Jacob Davis received a U.S. patent for men's work pants made with copper rivets. That's very interesting. In 1899, taxi driver Jacob Gurman was pulled over and arrested by a police officer riding a bicycle for speeding down Manhattan's Lexington Avenue in his electric car at 12 miles an hour at a time when the speed limit was 8 miles per hour. It was the first recorded speeding arrest in U.S. history. In 1927, Charles Lindbergh took off from Roosevelt Field on Long Island, New York, aboard the Spirit of St. Louis on his historic solo flight to France. In 1932, Amelia Earhart took off from Newfoundland to become the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic. Because of weather and equipment problems, Earhart set down in Northern Ireland instead of her intended destination of France. In 1956, the United States exploded the first airborne hydrogen bomb over Bikini Atoll in the Pacific. In 1959, nearly 5,000 Japanese Americans had their U.S. citizenships restored after choosing to renounce them during World War II. In 1985, Radio Marti, operated by the U.S. government, began broadcasting. Cuba responded by attempting to jam its signal. In 1995, President Bill Clinton announced that the 2-block stretch of Pennsylvania Avenue in front of the White House would be permanently closed to motor vehicles as a security measure. In 2009, suspended NFL star Michael Vick was released after 19 months in prison for running a dogfighting ring to begin 2 months home confinement. 10 years ago, under pressure following security lapses, retired Navy Admiral Dennis Blair resigned as National Intelligence Director. Mexican President Felipe Calderon took his opposition to a new Arizona immigration law to the U.S. Congress, telling lawmakers it ignored a reality that cannot be erased by decree. 5 years ago, 4 of the world's biggest banks, J.P. Morgan Chase, Citigroup's banking unit Citicorp, Barclays, and the Royal Bank of Scotland, agreed to pay more than $5 billion in penalties and plead guilty to rigging the currency markets. 1 year ago, a 16-year-old boy from Guatemala died while in U.S. Border Patrol custody in Texas, becoming the 6th child in the past year to die after U.S. border agents detained them. Okay. Cher is 74 years old. Dave Thomas is 72. Jane Weedland of the Go-Go's is 62. Ted Allen is 55. Trying to just kind of pick and choose here people you might know. I'm not so sure. Okay. Thought for the day. A flow of words is a sure sign of duplicity. This is from Honoré de Balzac, a French author who was born on this date in 1799 and died in 1850. Okay, our zodiac. Listen carefully, you never know. Taurus. Discipline will get you where you want to go. Whether it's a work-related or a personal victory you're after, your focus and determination will affect the outcome. Gemini. Beware of what others are doing. Someone you deal with won't have your back when you need support. Don't let disappointment bring you down. Be prepared to do things on your own. Cancer. A different approach to a pending problem is favored. Limit how much you spend and don't commit to something you cannot provide. An offer will come with some troubling baggage. Make positive adjustments before you proceed. Leo. Handle a sensitive issue carefully. If you act impulsively, you will have trouble reaching your objective. Charm and reaching out to someone who owes you a favor will pay off. Virgo. Collaborating with people who have similar goals will speed things up and encourage success. Distance yourself from anyone causing problems or looking for an argument. Libra. Information that interests you will come your way. Before you spread the word, verify the facts. Your reputation will depend on what you do and say. Self-improvement is encouraged. Scorpio, adjustments will help ward off an unnecessary argument. Joint finances or shared expenses will be a problem if you and your partner don't have the same values and ethics. Sagittarius, evaluate the way other people treat you and how well you're taking care of yourself. Walk away from debilitating situations. Capricorn, a change will be useful for you. Adjust your schedule to include the things that bring you the most joy. Don't forgo what's best for you just to appease others. Aquarius, take care of personal matters. Don't be fooled by what others do or say, or get into a senseless argument over something that you cannot change. Pisces, refuse to give someone who has disappointed you a chance to do so again. Focus on what you can do to make your life and environment better. And Aries, seize the moment and take control. If you want something done, do it yourself. Don't let the changes or decisions that others make disrupt your plans. Aim for stability, not chaos. The horoscope is an entertainment feature and is not based on scientific fact. So that's pretty much it for today. Keep calm through all of this. Wear your mask when you go out in public, and make sure that you are kind and patient with others. I know that my patience has been running a little tight after being in this apartment for so long, but you know what? We need to keep our faculties about us and stay in this together. Okay, that's all the news I have for you today. It is May 20th, 2020. Matt, back to you.
Danon, thanks again so much. I know you got to run, so we appreciate you reading the news, and I will take over from here and just close out the show, but thanks again.
Okay, thank you, Matt.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Local News Live, AOC Community Media's daily production of live news coming from our partners at The Advocate. TheAdvocate.com is where you can get more and up-to-date news information if you want to or if you need to. And you can support The Advocate and local journalism there. Some other local journalism partners, the Current, the Daily Advertiser. Just reminding everybody that local journalism is more important now than ever, especially with our national journalism. It's busy covering the national issues, so it may or may not have time to cover those local issues like your city parish council meetings, other meetings and local efforts, and giving you information that is pertinent to you and your community. AOC Community Media is really glad to be able to be part of that process, even if it's just in this minor way. On that note of sharing information and good information, sorry about the wind noise there. The wind seems to be picking up, but it's a nice little breeze. We will be launching a program on Friday at 12:30. It's going to be a live program, a live call-in program called All Hands. And essentially what we're looking to do is, look at that spirit of Acadiana of sharing and caring for one another. Acadiana has always been a community that has supported one another and come to each other's aid in the face of natural disasters and man-made tragedies and even market shifts. We have always been a community that really exemplifies community, the word community, meaning to work together, come together to overcome hardships and, good times and bad. Acadiana is here for each other, and we want to help to facilitate that a little bit. So if you're looking to hear from local difference makers, we're going to highlight some of the difference makers in our community who have been working hard, at all times, including during this public health emergency, to help their neighbors out and help one another. And we want to offer a place to, highlight that spirit and encourage those of you who may need help or those of you who can help to reach out, because we are a community in the truest sense of the word. We are all together in this, and we are going to help one another out and help to keep each other healthy and take care of our healthcare providers and everyone. We can do it. We can help each other. So I'm going to just finish out the hour by reading some PSAs, but I do want to thank you for tuning in. You can catch us every weekday morning from 9 to 10 on AOC 1. That is Cox 15 and LUS 3. You can also catch us on our YouTube page. Like and subscribe if you're there, and then you'll get all the local community media you want delivered to you. At YouTube, AOC Community Media, just search for that channel and you'll find all that good local community content. And of course on Cypress Street Radio, our streaming internet radio station. If you would like to produce community media, we would love to talk to you. Give us an email at info@aocinc.org, and we'd love to help you out. All right, so I'm going to read some PSAs. Sorry if any of them are duplicates, but we'll just start with keeping calm through COVID hotline. If you are feeling overwhelmed with stress, fear, and anxiety about the uncertainty surrounding this public health emergency, there is a special keeping calm through COVID hotline you can call. This connects you to trained, compassionate counselors who can offer support and who can direct you to mental health and substance abuse counseling services. Trained counselors available 24/7. All calls are confidential. Call 1-866-310-7977. Medicaid resources. If you have lost your job or if you have reduced hours, you may be eligible for Medicaid. You can apply online at mymedicaid.la.gov. That's .la.gov. You can also apply by phone by calling 1-888-342-6207 or by mail by sending information to Louisiana Medicaid, P.O. Box 91283, Baton Rouge, Louisiana 70821. Local Medicaid offices are currently closed to the public. If additional assistance is needed, you can call 1-888-342-6207. And that looks like it's all the time we have for today. So thanks everybody for tuning in to Local News Live, a daily public service of AOC Community Media in partnership with The Advocate and our volunteers. We will talk to you tomorrow. Thank you.